Tonight, let's take a look at a classic vintage lens, the Vivitar Series 1 28 1.9. Very fast, modest wide angle. In fact, it was my first vintage wide angle lens. Let's go take a look. This lens is a true vintage classic. It has that soft diffused look, wide open. Stop it down a couple stops, it cleans up. Look at this lens flare. Just love the way this looks. It was just absolutely perfect for this shot. Can't do that with a modern lens, at least not very easily, and it just doesn't have the same look. This lens was made by Tokina in the 1970s. The tapered barrel is typical of lenses made by Tokina. The mechanics of this are a little interesting. I mean, basically it's a smooth vintage lens, except when you focus it kind of close. As you get into about 1.5 feet or so, you'll actually feel kind of a cam kick in the focus ring. It's normal for these lenses, but it shouldn't really be excessive. There should be a little twitch in the focus ring, but it shouldn't be a real clunk. It shouldn't be very loose. If it is, return it or just don't buy it. This lens as a vintage lens is actually kind of pricey. I paid about $350 for it. Now, you may find some out there for cheap, but of course, buyer beware. As I said, mechanically, sometimes they get loose internally, and that's why you may find that the lens is significantly cheaper, so be careful. Let's take a look at some shots where I stopped the lens down, and there's plenty of sharpness and contrast here. Very happy, and it definitely has a very nice, organic look. Shooting this lens is a lot of fun. It makes beautiful flares. For example, in this shot, I have an HMI coming in through the window. Gave me a great flare. I love the way it looks. And it really gave me that hazy look that vintage lenses can be known for. However, stop it down to 2.8 or 4, all that goes away. It gets sharp, it gets contrasty. It is still prone to flare. So if you've got a light source or a window, it may flare. It may not give you the results that you necessarily want. In which case, maybe you want to switch to a modern lens. However, for controlled flare situations and for a lot of shooting, studio shooting where flare isn't really an issue, this lens can look absolutely beautiful, very comparable to modern glass in terms of its sharpness once you stop it down a little bit. One minus, the iris does have a ball in it, which is typical of still camera lenses, but this one's a little bit trickier to declick, and I actually started to take this lens apart, but I actually chickened out because I saw there was a bunch of things underneath the first ring in the back of the lens that were ready to pop out, and I just didn't feel like dealing with it. So for now, I left the ball in and I just deal with the iris and the fact that it has a click in it. Given that this isn't the cheapest vintage lens out there, you really have to kind of like the look of this lens to go in and get it. But if you do, I think you'll be very happy with it. I really like the f1.9 speed of this lens because once you stop it down to 2.8, performing very well as compared to a lens that starts at 2.8, which is not going to be at its best performance. You got to go down to 4, 5, 6. So faster lenses, they do work better compared to other lenses at the same aperture. Lenses can be very personal, and they can define the look of what you create. So finding a mix of vintage and modern glass can really be a big asset in finding that style you're trying to achieve. So check out the Vivitar 28 1.9. It's a great classic lens. Of course, be careful about the mechanics, but as long as those are clean, you're really going to enjoy shooting with this lens.